Okay, doesn't look like anybody's here but me or one person. If somebody could just tell me if the sound is okay. All right, so at least to get the technical part, at least semi uh, okay. At least it's not a disaster as far as people being able to hear what I'm trying to say, even if nobody cares what I'm saying. But at least it could be an understandable English. Uh, Although I'm thinking that perhaps I would have a bigger audience if I used a language other than English. I seem to have more, I think, appeal to people who are not English speaking as far as the subject matters I cover. Um, Certainly, I don't think there's any audience for what I do in Great Britain, for instance. So, but I think there is probably an audience in a number of Spanish-speaking countries for what I do. All right, so Jared is here. This is going to be basically second largest group of viewers on the channel is from India. Okay, well, makes sense, I guess. All right, so I'm just going to talk about books I'm reading since, according to um, the way I do my day, I spend a lot of time trying to read uh, since I'm not currently employed at the moment. I did have a job interview yesterday morning. So the book that I'm reading a bunch of books, and most of them are not real serious intellectual works. They're pretty much genre fiction, but it's better than the internet. So this is Henning Mankell, who is Swedish, and the name Henning is actually my grandmother's maiden name. So even though her family tree says Great Britain, we're pretty sure it's from Scandinavia. So Viking Raiders or something there. But this book is a translation to English from Swedish. And I haven't finished it. I'm only a little about 100 pages into it, but it starts out, I'm rooting for the serial killer. The serial killer has already killed one child rapist. I'm not sure if the second person he killed was child rapist as well, or just somebody helping the first child rapist through illegal money laundering through stolen art. But at any rate, I am not familiar with Hun Jin Kim. I don't know uh, the works of very many Korean historians other than the Koryo Saram. So I'm supposed to get a big giant book from my colleague and friend Valery Khan in Uzbekistan. He's written a giant book in Russian on the historiography of the Koryo Saram. But it may take a very long time for it to reach me from Uzbekistan. So I'm familiar with all of the major ethnic Korean writers writing about Koreans in the Soviet Union in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, but they don't write in Korean or English for that matter. They write in Russian. Um, so people like Gurman Kim out of Kazakhstan, BD Pak, I believe, is also out of Kazakhstan. Of course, Valery Khan, whom I participated on a panel with in Seoul, Korea in 2017. But yeah, I'm not. I don't have a real in-depth history of Korea, particularly the period of time before the 20th century. So I mean, my familiarity with it basically begins with the Russo-Japanese War and the creation of a Japanese protectorate, and then the Japanese colonization. So, out of 5,000 years of history, we're talking a very small slice chronologically. I was not aware of stolen art playing a role in the Irish Troubles. All right, so, but this is the first book I ever read by Henning Mankell was on human trafficking. I think it was probably his last novel with this particular character, the detective Kurt Wallander. And there's also a series of television shows on it. They're in Swedish, but they have subtitles. They're on YouTube. So if you're interested in Scandinavian noir, I like Henning Mankell, who's now deceased. He died a number of years ago, more than I do Jo Nesbø, who is a Norwegian writer, the Henry Hola series. Primarily because I like the character Kurt Wallander a lot better than Henry Hola. Henry Hola is a very dysfunctional person in a number of ways, not the least that he's basically a out of control alcoholic. Kurt Wallander is a much more down to earth figure, but of course, no detective is without a lot of faults, and Scandinavian detectives, or at least the way they're portrayed by Scandinavian crime writers, at least let's say it that way, seem to have the flaws in spades, but do like Scandinavian noir. It is quite dark. So if you like, a lot of people, their first, I think, introduction to Scandinavian noir is Stieg Larsson, who is now also deceased, died of a heart attack. Wrote The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It was a whole trilogy, but that's the title of the first book. So if you like Larsson, while he's not as nearly as political, Mankell is interesting. And of course, in all of these Swedish novels, and obviously not the Norwegian ones or the Danish ones, there's always mention of the greatest Scandinavian murder mystery and conspiracy, the assassination of Prime Minister Olof Palme in 1986. Yes, Stieg Larsson was quite a far leftist. But, some of these far left guys are pretty good novelists. So I would not let his left-wing politics deter you from reading The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. If you don't like the first volume, then don't read the second two volumes. But if you do, go ahead and read the whole series. But also, even if you don't like him, I would recommend some of the other Scandinavian writers. I don't know what Mankell's politics are. I assume they're probably from his book on human trafficking to the left, but was not as outspoken, obviously, as Larsson. Okay, next one I have up here. I didn't get all of them, did I? All right, well, let's go to this one. This one is strange. Okay, so Paul Watkins is the guy's real name, and then he wrote under a pseudonym for a while for this series, Sam Eastling. But this is a series, I just started this one, and it's not the first in the series, because this is what I found in the library. Inspector Pekka, which is a Finnish name, but these take place in the Soviet Union. Now, there is a Finnish minority in the USSR. the Hungarian Finns, the isthmus there between Estonia and St. Petersburg. So it's possible have somebody who is by nationalnost a Finn but a Soviet citizen in the 1930s. And I've just started that. Haven't really gotten into it, but I like the idea of this kind of historical detective. And I certainly like the idea of people doing detective work in the socialist states. Done quite a bit in literature, particularly Martin Cruz, Gorky Park, which was also made into a very good movie. Even earlier movie that does it for National Socialist Germany is Night of the Generals with Omar Sharif. So you have people investigating what are criminal crimes. So somebody from the Kripo in Germany or the militia in the USSR. But they have political overtones. So, of course, the KGB or the Gestapo gets involved and makes life interesting. There's a whole series of BBC radio shows about this in China during the 1990s. That's quite interesting. So the crimes that he is investigating in Shanghai are, basically homicide, murder, but a lot of them on the edges because of the transition and the corruption involve elements of the Chinese Communist Party, which make the investigating difficult for the detective, but also give it an interesting plot twist. Okay. Speaking of Solzhenitsyn, I am rereading the abridged version of the Gulag Archipelago. I couldn't find the unabridged one from '74, so this is the abridged one that was done in the '80s by Edward Erickson. And I can tell some of the stuff that's missing. So it's obviously it's much shorter than the 3 volumes, but a task in itself to edit it down. But I don't think it's a bad job. I would recommend it if you haven't read the Gulag Archipelago to try and get the 3-volume English version and just plow your way through it. But if you do find it too hard, maybe this abridged version, which is certainly easier to find in bookstores and libraries in the U.S., might be a place to start. But it does obviously have far less detail than the 3-volume version. Haven't really started it, but been recommended by all kinds of people on the Comanche Empire. So the Comanches were probably the most fearsome Native American empire in North America in the 18th and 19th centuries. Definitely a problem for both the Spanish and then later the Americans here in the Southwest. They pretty much are totally vanquished, but for a while, even a greater problem than the Apaches. The other book I'm reading, I don't think I'm going to get through it because it's not as that exciting as on New Mexico, 1846 to 1912, but it's basically just political lobbying for and against making the territory of New Mexico, which is officially formed in 1850. 1846 is the beginning of the Mexican-American War, into a full state, which happened in 1912. It's the second to last state in the lower 48 to reach statehood. So does so just before Arizona in 1912. All right, so I forgot a book. It was written by a British author. It's also not the first in the series, so it's like the one on Russia, giving me a bit of a trouble because it's making references to things that I haven't read, but takes place in northern England and has kind of two parts: the ongoing kind of saga of the detectives, how they got in the north, being exiled from London over a murder case of a child, and then a murder case in the north. That becomes a couple more murder cases, but basically a killing of a black man by some weird spin-off of the BNP, some guy who gets kicked out of the BNP for being too extreme and having a big mouth. So it's, again, a lot of these writers are politically leftist, but I don't let that interfere with my entertainment. So kind of just take it in stride. That the most writers, unless you're reading something like M.A.R. Barker's Serpent Walk, which I talked about on an earlier stream, are going to be anywhere from middle leftist to far leftist. You're not going to find too many on the right, certainly not the far right, although, as again, Barker's novel, which I believe is available online. I haven't tried to get it. I hate reading online, first of all. If there was a copy in the library, I would probably chance checking it out. Although, you know, I checked out a couple of books that never got reshelved after I returned them. And one of them was Arthur Koestler's The 13th Tribe on the Khazars. Another was the original 1968 version of The Great Terror by Robert Conquest. And the third one was an old book on the Spanish Civil War, which I didn't finish it, but it was rather sympathetic to Franco and the Nationalists. Okay. And I think that is it for. Oh no, I'm also reading another Jack Reacher novel. This is the one where he goes back to try and find his grandparents' house in Laconia, New Hampshire. And I'm not very far on that either. In fact, one of the reasons I'm not very far on any of these books, except the Swedish one and the one about the murder of the black man in northern England, is kind of reading too many books at once, I think. But most of those are fiction, except for the Comanche, which I think will be good. The Gulag Archipelago and the State of New Mexico, which I don't think will be very exciting, but we'll see. All right. There's always this book, if you want to order it, read it. The Years of Great Silence. It's on sale now from Amazon. It's gone down 19%. So it's like $34 instead of $42 right now, which is a pretty good bargain. I don't know how many copies I've sold. I'm kind of disappointed on WorldCat selling in 6 libraries, 3 in Germany and 2 in Texas, and then Columbia University. Although the distributor is Columbia University Press, so that makes sense. And there has to be a copy in the State National Library in Berlin by law, since it's the German publisher. Why it's represented well in Texas, I don't know. But there's a copy at Rice and a copy at Texas A&M libraries now. None in University of Texas in Austin. None in Texas Technical University in Lubbock, which is the closest city in Texas to me. Yeah, I have the abridged Gulag Archipelago. I checked out of the library. I couldn't find the unabridged one there. You know, we don't have a. It's not a very big town I live in, so actually the library is pretty good for such a tiny town. All right, but I don't. I don't have anything else. I don't. I'm trying to read at the moment. Um, if anybody wants a free copy of my book, though, if you have the credentials, the website, the Michigan War Strategic Review, I think it's called. I did a review for them of this book. Uh, they'll give you a free copy of my book if you want to review it. If you have the credentials. Michigan War Studies Review. That's what it is. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Oh yeah. Thank you to Iron Duke. Okay. So that's I remember. I believe the guy who runs it is named James Holoka. So he's in Michigan, obviously, but it's has a military focus. But my book is one of the books that's they're currently looking for a reviewer. So if you qualify and you write to them and you pass, you can get a free copy that way. Save yourself $30, which I know things being tight. So let me see if I can find the stream. Oh, if anybody wants to come on, just contact me either through email or Twitter, and we can discuss any books you want. Obviously, the books I'm reading might not be the books that you're reading at the moment. There may have been books we have read in the past that are overlapping. And I have other books here. I haven't. Some I've read, some I haven't. So, but I have this big collection. It looked kind of good, but I just haven't started it. It's just like a whole bunch of little short pieces. I bought this at the Albertsons for $5. It's the Black Lizard book, big book of locked room mysteries. So it looks like this, but it's got a lot of good writers in it. I just haven't, gone through it. I like the cover. Nothing else that looked good on the bookshelf if I ever get a bookshelf. So it's got Dashiell Hammett in it, Agatha Christie, Georges Simeon, P.G. Wodehouse, Edgar Allan Poe. So selection of good writers if you're into this short fiction. I've never heard of Herman Broch. So no, I haven't read The Sleepwalkers. No, I haven't read that particular book by Pat Buchanan. Hitler, Churchill, and the Unnecessary War. It's hard for me to get books out here. You know how I get most of the books that are on European history is that people ask me to review them and send them. So right now I'm waiting for a book on Crimean Tatars I'm supposed to review for the Russian Review, but it has to be sent from Toronto. So it may be a very long time before it finally arrives here. Although I do believe it will beat the book from Uzbekistan. So a race to, but it takes forever to ship anything here, it seems. Even like from California, which is pretty close, it takes a long time to mail stuff here. I'll see if I can find Hoon Jin Kim. I doubt I'll find him at my library here. Lemongrass tea from Ecuador. All right, the Huns. All right. Let me do this. Oops. I did that wrong. Let's try this again. Okay. All right, now it's done correctly. Okay. Yeah, we have interlibrary loan. I could do that, but it also takes a long time.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, thanks.
You got the high tech audio equipment from Staten Island there.
Yeah, I was getting some tech advice from someone on the Beauty and the Beta they were streaming earlier tonight, and in the chat there were some people giving me advice on what to do to improve the production value of my videos, which obviously.
Shotgun, boy.
Hmm?
I'm reading a book recommendation in the chat.
Oh.
Although the book is evidently quite old. It's from the first volume is written in 1888. Or maybe it just takes place in 1888. Oh well. It's unclear. All right, so the beta gave you advice?
No, these were just people people I know in chat. One of them was actually a regular viewer of my videos. But speaking of old books, one of the books I haven't actually started reading it yet, but one of the books that I took out from the library was The Tale of Genji, which is ostensibly one of the first novels to be composed. But I actually haven't started reading it yet. I've been mostly sticking with. Well, one of the books is A Suitable Boy, which is an almost 1,500-page long novel by Vikram Seth, an Indian writer. It's sort of like War and Peace without the war.
That sounds like incredibly boring, just right there.
Yeah.
Other than Rudyard Kipling, I haven't had real good experiences reading Indian novelist, and Rudyard Kipling's only not really Indian.
He's Anglo-Indian.
British,
kind of, yeah. He's kind of like sort of like reading George Orwell a little bit.
But I like Kim by Kipling.
That's one of the things.
Which is a kind of an international spy thriller between Tsarist Russia and British India.
Yeah, that's one of the things I regret. Aside from some of his poetry and listening to some of the music that his poetry is set to or adapted from, I haven't read that much.
Well, Kim is short. Would you see the book in a bookstore or the library? It's a lot thicker than you need to read, because the most popular version, or the one that I read when I was in Arizona, it has this essay that's as long as the novel itself, written by Edward Said, and you can just skip over that. Really, that's totally unnecessary. That's just like you're filling pages.
Yeah, that's one of the that's one of the things I hate, especially these. You get these Penguin books, Penguin classics, or
some English professor has a big essay in the
front. A 20-page essay.
The Said essay is 150 pages.
That's insane. Are you serious?
Yeah, like to get a 300. The book is only 150 pages too. So like the Said essay.
So he wrote a book.
by Kipling.
That's like that exhibit meme with the picture of exhibits. Like, yo, dog, I heard you like books, so here's a book in a book about a book.
Well, I think you know what it was. They were trying to the publisher was trying to drum up interest for a reissue of Kim, and Said was, at the Columbia University, and I believe that's what he wrote his PhD dissertation on. So this 150-page essay is like a condensed version of his doctoral dissertation on Kim. All right, and they just put that in there but
I can't imagine, even at the apex of his popularity, I can't imagine Edward Said being more recognizable than Kipling, except for maybe within like
Kim is not a very thick book, it's like the tiny. So they were trying to pad it out.
Okay.
So, it's basically the 150 pages of Said, 150 pages of Kipling.
I would have just stuck another Kipling work, do one of those things like Joseph Conrad, where they have, two or three novellas stuck together.
That's true. Yeah. What is the famous one? Heart of Darkness, and there would be like a couple other.
Yeah.
Little
or
short,
Lordship, or
Oh, you know, it'd be great.
Lucky-
Even better. Get rid of Saeed. Put Conrad's Heart of Darkness together with Kipling Kim.
Yeah.
Say it's colonial superseller.
Yeah, or just add it to Orwell's Burmese Days. You just stick them all.
That's another one.
One big.
I like Conrad's Heart of Darkness, and I really like Kipling Kim.
Oh,
You
Conrad.
can see that the structure of a whole lot of what will become Cold War thrillers, because they basically had the Cold War I in Asia between the British Empire and Tsarist Russia.
Oh yeah, so is it? Yeah, I
It's
was
a
thinking
spy
of,
thriller. Kim,
I was thinking of
main
Grant
character,
Green.
is out there as a spy against the Russians in Nepal and the Northwest Territories and Afghanistan and Central Asia.
Well, Conrad was really. He actually wrote an entire novel to that effect. I believe it was about a kind of a terrorist.
Yeah. See, it's not as good as his Heart of Darkness, which is about.
He did write some very good short stories, like the Duel. He really is one of the better writers, especially when you consider the fact that English, I think, was his third language.
Yeah,
and
native speaker of Polish.
Yeah, and he's one of the best English language writers probably of the 20th century. It's pretty impressive. It's funny. We were talking about the laboriously these these introductions or prefaces that are ridiculously long.
The big Saeed one.
That's why I love I forget the order of his name, but Jean-Patrick Manchet that French. He was a famous or semi-famous French crime suspense writer. He was also a big.
The big French. No, was he? I don't even know if he might have been Belgian. He wrote in French. George Simeon, one of the early detective writers.
Yeah, this guy wrote in the 70s, I think, all the way up until.
Simeon was much earlier.
Yeah, all the way up through the 80s. And he was also a leftist, but he was sort of a cynic who, like, his stories would revolve. One of them was about, and I just read this novel, The Angustro Affair. It was about, it was loosely based on something that actually happened. This dictator from a small African country that had just.
It wasn't Equatorial Guinea. Was it? Equatorial Guinea is the one, the Dogs of War, with the mercenaries that overthrew Nguma.
Yeah, no, actually, no. That's the thing. I think it was based on. I think it actually no. It might have been based on Morocco. It's some Moroccan dissident who.
Morocco was under a monarchy always.
Yeah, but I can't
remember a time.
Yeah, but I think there was some dissident.
Other than when it became a French protectorate, and even then, I think the Sultan of Morocco was still in power. He just was under the protection of the French.
Yeah, but I think there was some Moroccan dissident that sought exile in France and was assassinated while he was there. And I think
That's
this
possible.
Was
the Moroccans. It's a big place for tourism because you got the Atlas Mountains there for skiing. Yeah.
They filmed tons of movies. They were
absolutely ruthless, crushing as much as they could the Polisario in
the Polisario,
Sahara.
And they're still technically at war with them, aren't they? I mean,
but the Moroccans are basically won because they've got so many more people that they just sent in there to occupy it as civilian settlers.
I think that's one of the reasons they filmed so many of these Hollywood movies that take place in the Middle East. It's one of the few countries there that's relatively stable and secure enough. You're not going to be threatened by.
Well, I think they did a lot of the filming of Star Wars in Tunisia back before the Arab Spring.
I was going to say before the Arab Spring, Tunisia was another country that would probably have been good for film set.
was
Yeah.
a dictator for all his long life.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tunisia, Morocco were, especially considering what has happened in Algeria and the kind of policies, experimentation being done by Gaddafi after he overthrows the monarchy in Libya.
One of the best interviews I've ever read. In fact, the whole book is worth reading. But Anna Fallaci wrote this book or published this book called I think it's called Interviews with Power. But it was basically her interviewing all of these iconic cultural political figures. One of them was Muhammad Ali, and she describes being sexually harassed and almost attacked by his entourage after he converted to become a member of the Nation of Islam. But another interview is with Muammar Gaddafi, and that one is even more interesting because she goes there after he's seized power, and he's been in power, I think, for significant amount of time. I think over a decade or maybe 2 decades. This was written sometime in the 70s, I think.
No, he seized power in '69.
69. Okay, so
in '69 he overthrew the monarch, and the U.S. military bases were kicked out, of course.
Yeah.
So he was a colonel then in the Libyan army.
So this was probably maybe 6 or 7 years after he came to power, but the publicity surrounding him was that he had created so much. He had basically revolutionized Libya to the point where no Libyan had to work. And when she got there, she realized what he meant by that was he just imported a bunch of Palestinian and Filipino and just basically third world, laborers to fill these jobs. And it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of these people were kind of in the crossfire when his government, when NATO started attacking.
And later on when he became openly pro-African and Pan-African, he bought a lot of sub-Saharan Africans in.
He tried to supplant the African or the African Union, basically the rule.
No, he was funding the African Union. I mean, he was a major source of their money supply. Hello, Iron Duke.
Oh, hey.
Good day, also. How are you going, mate?
I'm looking for work, but other than that, I guess I'm okay.
Are you not still working at the school where you were?
No, they asked me to resign rather than die of a heart attack while at work.
Oh, right. That's sad.
But what they did do is they gave me 11 months out of 12-month salary for 7 months of work.
Well, that's good.
But I still now have to find employment. So I had a job interview yesterday.
Oh, cool, man. Cool. Listen, I really came on because you were talking about Rudyard Kipling. And
all right. We specifically Kim, but anything you want to say?
Yep. Oh, listen, Kim's a great book. Kim is a book that even Indian nationalists like because it's so accurate. But if you like Kim, and
I love Kim because I love the whole cloak and dagger,
it's, as you said, it's
struggle between the Russian Empire and the British over in Central Asia. I mean, I lived in Kyrgyzstan for a long time, and Bukhara and Khiva and Afghanistan. Those were kind of the areas that the Russians and the British were having this shadow war in.
Yeah, no, I've watched videos on YouTube specifically because they went to places like Bukhara and what have you, So I wanted to see what they actually look like, and they have a lot of quite interesting old buildings and this kind of stuff in them still, which I was a bit surprised to see. But yeah, now if you like Kim, then I would suggest you go and read Plain Tales from the Hills, also by Rudyard Kipling, which is another great series of short stories in a book. and also Soldiers 3, which is also related to that and is another series of short stories, mostly set in Afghanistan and what have you, and on the northwest frontier of India. Really, if you like Kim, you'll like those. They're really good. And like Kipling was one of those English guys who just loved India. He loved the damn place, which is why Kim is such a good book.
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons why it's good. But I mean, one of the things that, as I talking to Jared, that strikes me is that the way he sets it up is pretty much the way that people like Le Carre and other writers writing much later, they kind of like copy the whole structure of how do you talk about the clandestine, secondary war between powers that are kind of officially at peace. I think he was the first guy to do it.
The British used to call it the Great Game.
Yes.
And
the Russians do the same, but in Russian, so Bolshoye Grad.
Oh, cool. Have you seen the movie Kim with Errol Flynn?
A long time ago. I've reread the book much more recently, so I'm more familiar with the text itself than with the movie adaptation.
The movie ain't bad, actually. It sticks fairly closely to the book, although, of course, it would not be allowed today because Errol Flynn is playing an Indian character. So
they could just get Justin Trudeau. They could cast him as the
absolutely. He likes his turbans. That's true.
No, that's I would say it's a fantastic book. Character Kim is even though he's quite young, he still is kind of like the quintessential spy operating there in the borderlands.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be a British soldier's orphan, like an ordinary private's orphan. So that also is quite different for a book written in the 1890s, I think.
Oh yeah, but as I recommended, if you get the version with the big essay by Said, you can just skip it. It's not going to add anything to your enjoyment of Kipling.
Yeah, I have a lot of those. I was going to suggest, Otto, you should send your book to somebody like Academic Agent to get it reviewed. I'm sure he'd do that for you, and he's certainly got the qualifications to do that. He was at Oxford, for God's sake. And of course, Apostolic Majesty, who you did that excellent stream with on the subject of your book. He's a friend of Academic Agent, so he can certainly put you in touch with it.
Okay. I don't know who has plans to review it or not. So far, the only people who have said that they would do a review of it so far are Michigan Strategic War Review and the Russian Review, but neither have reviewers.
I do like the idea of cross promotion on bigger platform with bigger content creators, for example, that are more intellectual, like Hermetix or Austin McIntyre, someone like that who is very scholarly but has a bigger audience to be willing to interview.
I think though to review a book like Otto's, you'd actually have to have quite a lot of academic qualifications before anyone's going to say. I mean, you could do it on your YouTube channel, obviously, but for someone to take it seriously in a publication, you'd need some academic qualifications, I suspect.
Generally the journals choose the reviewers, and it generally what will happen is the senior book review editor will pick the name of the person that they know that writes on the subject regularly, who is not the author of the book, and ask them to review it. So That I've written a lot on Crimean Tatars, so I now have to review a big giant book on its way from Canada on Crimean Tatars, but I'm not sure when it will arrive.
I guess I was just thinking more in terms of getting the book into the hands of people, because a lot of I don't think people appreciate how much something like BookTube or BookTok, the literary side of TikTok, how influential they are, and even promoting books that have no ostensible audience, that are by these small time authors. If they're promoted by a big content creator on one of these platforms, it just skyrockets sales of the book.
Well, I think I'm going to have a lot of sales no matter what happens. But
It's a fairly niche subject in like overall terms, I think.
Yeah, that no, I understand.
I mean,
Then again-
it's not a niche subject in numbers of people involved, but like it's especially in the Western world. I don't think like Germans in Russia is something that is very widely understood at all in the West.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's in certain parts of the U.S., Germany, certain parts of Latin America, and that's about it for places where there's any interest.
I don't know. I don't think it's fair. I mean, look, the reason it's not well understood is the reason to do a book about it, I guess. You know,
Right,
to have a
but,
book in English on it is kind of pioneering in a way.
yeah, but there's also 4 million Americans and Canadians that are directly related by blood to these people, so that's kind of the niche for the English speaking audience. So
For sure. I noticed when you were on Apostolic Majesty's channel talking about the subject, you pointed out that a lot of the Germans who had been in Russia ended up moving to Canada.
yes, if you go to Alberta, the areas around Winnipeg that are heavily Black Sea German. There's areas over by Kitchener, which used to be Berlin. There's a variety of ethnic Germans. A lot of those are from former Austro-Hungarian Empire, including from Transylvania. But there's also a bunch of Mennonites from Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know anything about the Mennonites until I watched that stream you did with Apostolic Majesty. And then I realized they were kind of a bit like the Quakers in the UK, because they were like non-violent, and they wouldn't be military and all this kind of stuff.
Yes, the Anabaptist. So there's a lot of different varieties of Mennonites, but the fundamentalist branch off that most people are familiar with is the Amish.
Mm-hmm.
And then also related to them is another group called the Hutterites.
No, cool. It was that stream you did with Apostolic Majesty, by the way. Anyone who's watching this, to go and watch that. That was a really good stream, and like you'll get a much better idea of what Otto's book is about if you watch that stream.
Yeah. So, yeah, I haven't. It hasn't gotten kind of the kind of academic reviews yet in, although I suppose they're always slower than other segments of society.
Otto, could I suggest the chap who you should try and do a stream with, if you haven't already, is the Distributist.
Okay.
Because his family were originally Germans from east of the German border.
Yeah, they're from Hungary.
Yeah, so he would have something in common with you on that respect, and he's also he's a really good chap, and I reckon you'd probably have a pretty good discussion with him.
Yeah, I don't have any contact with anybody. As you can see, this is like the smallest YouTube channel in existence. I think if it got any
mate,
smaller,
it's bigger than mine
disappear.
still.
I was
It's
going to
still
say it's bigger than mine too.
Yeah, it's
Barely.
It's bigger than mine. Mine's only got like I don't know 800 people in it or something like that.
Mine's just
Okay.
mine's
So
a
I'm the-
thousand.
So I'm the odd man out. I don't even have 600.
Yeah. No. You should definitely have a chat to Dave the Distributist. He would be a good chap for you to do a stream with. And as I said, you have a certain amount in common in terms of being Germans who actually lived east of the actual German border, certainly after World War One, anyway.
So my family left in part of it, most of my great grandfather left in 1904, but I think the last contact we had with anybody still over there was 1945, and they were forcibly repatriated back to the USSR.
Lovely. Yeah, that was one of the more disgusting things the Allies did after World War II. But yeah.
Although there are a number, it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, there
choose.
were a number, but I think the forced repatriation of people back to the tender mercies of Stalin after World War II was, I think, one of the most appalling things the Western Allies did.
Well, it wasn't well known until Julius Epstein published an article on it in the 70s, and then he wrote a book called Operation Keelhaul on it. But before Epstein's article, there's very little on it, even though there was a little bit on it, but they didn't get much press. Reverend Sloan, who became a big time anti-war activist during Vietnam. He had fought in World War II, and he was present at Fort Dixon, New Jersey, when there was a mass suicide of Russian POWs that had been brought over from German captivity that were being sent back to the USSR. I think 9 guys killed themselves.
That's disgusting. Yeah, no, it made me ashamed when I heard of some of the things the British Army did in 1945 to push Russians back into Stalin's hands. Are like really bad.
Yeah. And then the one that, of course, really problematic is sending the Cossacks back, because they were not Soviet citizens. They had left before the Soviet Union was formed in December 1922, so they were not legally obligated under Yalta to return them.
Yeah, no, I listen. Like I said, that stuff made me ashamed when I found out about that. Could I just say, you got Charlemagne in the chat?
Yes, I see.
And Charlemagne, I knows Dave the Distributist. And I was just saying earlier, Charlemagne, that Otto should do a stream with Dave the Distributist, because Dave's ancestors are also Germans from east of the German border. And I reckon those two would be able to do an interesting stream together. And I wonder if, Charlemagne, you might be kind enough to put them in touch, perhaps.
No, but Charlemagne did write a review of my book that I thought was quite good on his Substack. So I believe that it's still available for free, but I think he was going to put it under paywall at some time. So if you don't want to pay for his review of my book, I recommend you see it as soon as possible.
Well, there you go. He said he can do that. Also, so that'll be cool. I'd like to see you on a stream with Dave the Distributist. I think you two would get on quite well.
Okay.
It's interesting. I didn't know that about Reverend Sloan Coffin. I
Yeah. He writes. I can't remember if it's in the beginning of the Epstein book or it might be the guy who was in Alabama who wrote on it. Elliot was his name. He cites it, but there was some written at the time by Sloan about it. He did put in a formal protest, even though he was still active duty, to the U.S. military against it at the time. So that was kind of like he says. Sloan put later, right? This is one of the first things that kind of made him an activist, was seeing the Russian soldiers kill themselves.
I think he was the head of Union Theological Seminary, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
that was later, after he got out of the army. So he
Yeah,
had
he was-
fought in the war as a young man, obviously.
I do believe that in 1945 there were even some British soldiers who just refused to participate in, like, some of these Russian guys were like physically beaten into getting onto trains and trucks to be sent back to Stalin, and there were some British soldiers, and God bless them, who refused to do that, but not many, not enough. Not
Yeah,
enough.
I think there is a book by the nephew of Leo Tolstoy, who was a British citizen,
Yeah,
called The Minister and the Massacres. It talks about the forced repatriations of Russian Cossacks and various Croatians and Slovenes to Tito from Austria. So particularly Bleiburg massacre by the partisans. But I believe he does mention people refusing to carry out the orders to force people back to the communists.
yeah, just not enough, sadly.
But that book was controversial because he ended up getting sued
Hmm.
by the minister of the book title. So in
Yeah.
1986, Nikolai Tolstoy, that's his name, Nikolai.
Yep.
Harold Macmillan was the one he accused.
Yeah, Macmillan was obviously British Prime Minister and one of the various cuck conservative British Prime Ministers there have been since World War II, you know?
Right.
Well, I didn't know until I watched Mr. Jones that this Guardian reporter, the diplomat,
Muggeridge?
no, not him.
Oh.
Although Muggeridge makes an appearance in the film, but the
you're talking about Gareth Jones?
Yeah, Gareth Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Jones, the guy who reported on the Holodomor, yeah.
Yes, Gareth Jones.
Yeah.
And he wound up being killed, I think, right?
Yes.
So after this had been published, like a few years after.
I think for some reason I think he was killed in China, but let me look it up.
Yeah, he went back to Britain and then he went to, I forget where.
He was killed in China, Inner
Yeah.
Mongolia, 1935. So I don't know who. Let's see if I can find who killed him in China. Okay, so they banned him from the Soviet Union because he wrote about the Holodomor. So then he went to Inner Mongolia, and it looks like he was killed by the Japanese. Well, they don't know. The suspicion it might have actually been the NKVD. Body was found with 3 bullet wounds. He was only 29 when he was killed.
Could I ask you, Otto, unless you think it's too controversial to talk about, what is your opinion of what's going on in Ukraine at the moment?
I haven't been following it real closely, but my opinion is that the United States would be far better off having a neutral position than unconditionally supporting the Zelensky regime.
Yeah, that's totally my own position for the US and the British also. Yeah, absolutely, totally agree.
But I don't have a position. I think something that for U.S. interests we should just stay out of, though.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I think the British should too. I don't see
even though
why
Boudreaux
we're helping one side. I just don't
Boudreaux is doubling down. I mean, even after surviving that no confidence vote where he got less support than Theresa May, and she resigned, I think 6 months later.
Yeah, he got, well, it was less than that. I think it was about 3 months later, but he got 148 votes against him.
Yeah, 41% of his MPs voted against.
And Theresa May only got 130 odd votes against her. There are many people who don't agree with me, but I think that Johnson will have to call a general election within the year. And if he doesn't, I don't see how he survives. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'm no Johnson fan. Look, I'm on the right, but I'm on the real right, or the dissident right, if you like. And
Jonathan Bowden, right? Bowden, right?
Jonathan Bowden, yeah, absolutely right. Jonathan Bowden was a great guy. I wish we had someone as good as him in the UK these days, but you know.
But what were you going to say? You were about to make a.
All I was saying was that I think Alexander Johnson is going to have to hold an election. I don't see how he just carries on when 148 MPs voted against him, especially when you remember that 140 so-called conservative MPs, and they're not conservative at all, really, are on the government payroll. So, like, his defeat.
Yeah, it's not a good showing at all.
No, he's in trouble. He is in trouble. But we'll see. I mean, time will tell.
I think another consideration is what I think they pointed this out on the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, the fact that there's really no one to replace him at the moment. And I think you also have to consider who, if the person replaces him just starts reinstituting all of the COVID restrictions. I think that's a definite possibility. Like they could use that as a pretext to just start.
Well, what I understand from talking to people who follow this stuff more closely than me is that there are factions within the so-called, in inverted commas, air quotes, conservative party who are not conservative at all. To give you an example, Britain had 1 million immigrants between 2021 and 2022, the largest number in the entire history of Great Britain. The illegal immigrants across the channel are completely out of control, and Alexander Johnson and the so-called, in air quotes, Conservative Party want to make Britain a place where energy prices are going to more than double in the next year, and old age pensioners are going to freeze to death in the winter because they can't afford to heat their homes. Because
didn't somebody even ask him a question?
They're doing the so-called watermelon Green New Deal, you know.
Didn't somebody even put him on the spot at a press conference about this? There was some reporter, or I don't know if it was a reporter, but someone asked him about this. You know, how he can reconcile sending, you know, billions of dollars to the Ukraine while at the same time people are, you know, elderly pensioners are freezing.
Well, it's not even just that. It's that the British Armed Forces have never been weaker since the 1700s than they are today.
Yeah, we beat them.
Yeah, never been weaker since the 1700s than they are today. And I'm long before the American War of Independence, by the way.
Well, you guys won the French and Indian War, the 7-year war.
Yep,
yeah,
we did. But then as soon as we wanted to get a little bit of tax off the Americans to pay,
I was going to say, like, King Philip's war. After that war ended, wasn't that the reason the American Revolution took place? Because they had to recover.
The King Philip's War was before the French and Indian War, but yeah, King Philip's War was the another big one, but that was almost that one was mainly the Native Americans.
Oh,
themselves.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. What was
Yeah, that was a big war.
what was
I
the
mean,
other
they
name
put
for
up
the
quite
French?
a big resistance.
What was the European name for the French and Indian War? I forget.
7 years
7-year war.
war.
What?
7 years. 7
The
years.
7
Years
Years War.
War.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, Britain was allied with Frederick the Great's Prussia in that. But yeah, but the British Armed Forces have never been weaker than they are today, and yet Alexander Johnson is giving Ukraine millions and millions of dollars or pounds worth of British military equipment, which British taxpayers will then have to replace, and it's going to make no difference because Russia's going to win anyway. You know, it's totally obvious now that Russia is going to win this war. Anyone who doesn't think they are is completely insane, in my opinion.
So could they actually, could Argentina theoretically recover the Falklands if they wanted?
No, Argentina is even weaker than Britain.
That's what I think. Because people always bring up this issue, but I mean, my impression is that even if they invade Bolivia, Evo Morales or whoever could just raise up a militia. Like the Argentine army does not strike me as a like a daunting.
No, Argentina has declined even more than Britain in the last 40 years.
The Argentinian army did great against the communists in the dirty war.
Yeah, when most of them had no guns. Yeah.
That's even better. Strike before they arm. I think there's something in Sun Tzu about that.
Well, wasn't that what they said during the Franco-Prussian after France lost the Franco-Prussian War and Paris was threatening to secede? They told the French they had to use their bullets on them. They had to use their bullets basically to suppress the National Guard or whatever, the
French Commune.
The French Commune, yeah.
Paris Commune.
The
Paris
Commune, which was like kind of proto-communist.
Yes.
Yeah, and there were huge casualties in that. I think that there were tens of thousands of.
Well, it's downplayed because it's
exaggerated by the left.
It's downplayed in terms of fatalities because it's between the Napoleonic Wars and World War I, which were absolutely huge. But there were a fair number of deaths in the Franco-Prussian War.
Yeah, there were.
There was a great series. I think it's called The War. There's some channel on YouTube there that does a week by week. Week by week, it goes through each week of.
It's very normy. It's very normy.
Yeah, but it's very, the one about World War I is actually really interesting because they did a kind of, after they completed that, they did one on the Franco-Prussian War, which I knew virtually nothing about.
It was a different channel that did the Franco-Prussian War.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was a different channel. The ones who did World War I who are now doing World War II, which I don't watch at all because it's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, that one is awful.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
The one with Indy Neidell, or
that's the one. Yeah. And they were the guys who did the World War I one as well, which was also ridiculous.
Is that the Great War series?
Yeah.
I saw some of them. They were okay.
Yeah, some.
My favorite of all of these kind of mainstream YouTube channels dealing with history is the Dutch guy, History Hustle.
I don't know him. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, he does a lot on various Waffen SS units. He will go through each one and talk about it. And he's done a whole bunch of stuff on the Eastern Front for both World War I and World War II. He has a whole series of all these little states that kind of grew up during the interwar period and then disappeared real fast.
Yeah.
But he is from the Netherlands. But I think it's kind of good. It kind of gives him, especially World War I, when Netherlands was neutral, a kind of an objective point of view.
Well, that guy, History with Hilbert, is also Dutch, right? He even incorporates that as a joke into his videos. I think the intro.
I don't watch that guy because that guy is like totally normie.
Yeah, I mean
History
most of the popular history channels are probably like I can't think of any that are revisionist in any.
The guys, I can't remember the name of the channel there now, but I am subscribed to it. Who did the Franco-Prussian War? That was actually quite a good series. It was.
That was a great series.
Yeah, but it wasn't anything to do with history with Hilbert or the guys who did the Great War.
I knew it didn't have anything to do with history with Hilbert. I guess I thought it was connected to the Great War because he also. I don't think it was just the Franco-Prussian War. I think he also did some sort of.
Oh, he's done other stuff.
Yeah,
he's done other stuff. Like I like a lot of quite small history channels. Like Eastern Roman history is good. It's about the Byzantine Empire and stuff like this. But
did you ever read that book by Lars Brownworth, Lost to the West? It's basically a 300-page book about the entire history of the Byzantine Empire.
No, but it's like each decade get like a sentence.
Yeah. No, but it's really good. I was kind of amazed at how thorough.
We'll now go through one century in one page.
Yeah, exactly.
I love books like what's it called, Rubicon, by some lefty British historian, who is totally anti.
Oh, that's by Mary Beard, I think.
No, it's not. No, it's not. He's a bloke.
Who?
But I know Mary Beard, and she's equally bad. But yeah, but
is she the one who did the Black Athena?
Yeah, she would probably be one of those. Yes,
Black Athena. Are you talking about that book that was published in the 90s, or?
Didn't somebody claim that like all of Egyptian culture came from?
No,
Egypt?
That's not her.
It wouldn't be Mary Beard. She's not that stupid.
She's more of
She is a feminist.
She's a feminist, yeah, but I think I don't know.
Okay, let's see. Black Athena is
very ugly. She's a very ugly feminist.
She debated Boris Johnson.
The Roman army is really diverse, which actually it wasn't.
Martin Bernal wrote Black Athena.
Mary Beard debated Boris Johnson in a classical history debate. I think
and lost.
So I guess Boris Johnson took the side of Greece. And she took the side of...
No, I tell a lie. I'm wrong. She won. Actually, I remember.
She's ugly.
Yeah, she
God.
She is ugly.
Oh my Lord.
To be fair, there aren't that many historical scholars who look like Brad Pitt or Jennifer Aniston. Like you could probably...
No, but most of us are kind of... Not that bad.
At least the five.
Like
five or above.
I would say.
Yeah, no. Mary Beard is bloody terrible. I do hate her, but it wasn't her who did that. But the bloke who wrote.
She's only 67. My God, my mother is considerably older than her and doesn't look nearly as badly aged.
Mate, she looked terrible, Otto, when she was like 35. But never mind.
It's a bit of a tangent.
But no,
not even on the streets of Soho have I seen such horrors.
Very true. Very true. No, I hate Mary Beard. I mean, like I love ancient Roman history, and like she constantly tries to subvert it, you know. And
well, I something I disliked, and I read a couple hundred pages of SPQR, and something I disliked was the way she poo-pooed any sort of pre-republic, basically the era of monarchy, the early historical accounts. Actually, she did. I think a large part of that is exploring the relationship between the Etruscans and the emerging Rome, but I dislike the utter skepticism about everything that kind of bleeds through her book. Like, I'm not saying you should believe that Romulus and Remus were raised by a she-wolf.
I've seen the statue. Of course, it was true.
It's there. The statue's probably going to be pulled down by the Italian version of BLM for some reason, some sort of.
No, I don't think so. They had a real Antifa in Italy at the end of the Second World War, and they didn't tear down the statue. They just kicked Mussolini in the head.
Well, and hung him upside down along with his mistress and murdered him. But yeah.
Yeah, well, being kicked in the head enough will do that to you.
They had a pretty good series of films about the years of the years of lead or
that's the 70s, yeah, with Rosa Brigata.
There was this epic series of, I forget if it was television programs or television dramas or films documenting that, which is supposed to be really good. I forget who the director was, but it was probably much better than some of the films that documented the same phenomena. 2000, like they had a film about called the Baader-Meinhof complex, which I saw, which was
I haven't seen that about
Andreas
Baader and what was her name? I can't remember her first name. Yeah, Baader, but the Baader-Meinhof gang, the Rote Army faction.
Yeah.
But they were, being heavily subsidized by East Germany.
I'm sure. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, it just turned out, but in some sense, that's kind of their saving grace because, in a twisted way, it turns out Baader was in his own communist way, the same way people like the East German communist, an actual German nationalist of some sort, which there are none alive today, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I don't think
you'd last long. West Germany, at least.
Well, you wouldn't last long in Germany as a German nationalist today, because there are actual laws that will send you to jail. I mean, didn't Germany even jail some woman in her 80s or something who said something about World War II? And they sent her to prison. They sent her to prison, for God's sake. And she was in her 80s.
No, she's in her hundreds. She's like, she's older than Haberbach is like 100 now.
It's pathetic. Well, why would you do that to someone of that?
Haberbach, that's her name. Ursula Haberbach is 93. I'm sorry, not 100. She's 93 years old.
But she was sent to prison when she was.
Yes, she was sent to prison. Charges of Holocaust denial. 2 years served.
One of the biggest supposedly anti-racist NGOs that monitors the internet expressions of reactionary thought is based in Germany. This is the one that all of the U.S. nonprofits and NGOs use when they publish these stories about, like the number of right-wing, expressions of right-wing hatred and, like why we need laws that restrict YouTube or Google's ability to allow dissenting opinion, basically. A couple of the big ones, almost all of them, I think, are in Germany. I forget what the name of the main one is, but it's definitely Germany. I don't want to.
Yeah, I know. One of the things that was really strange to me, one of the first of these organizations they banned was basically the Veterans Organization for the Waffen-SS, which was basically a mutual help organization. If anything, it was actually an anarcho-syndicalist organization providing assistance to old veterans. But it was banned because they were all guys who fought in the Waffen-SS.
See, my thing is, I think that all nationalists need to step over World War Bloody II. There are British and Prussian regiments that have the same battle honours from the Napoleonic Wars, like Waterloo and going back even before that. And we should go back to that stuff. That's where we should start our nationalist thing from. Like, forget World War Bloody Two and what was happening there, because Stalin was a scumbag and Hitler was a scumbag and Mao, who also
Stalin's
came up in
War by Sean
Yeah.
McMeekin is a great book. If you want to, it's a revisionist history that basically explains the origins of World War II. There's lots of stuff I didn't even know, like about the Lend-Lease
Yeah.
program that was really.
Yep. I know there was lots of things. One of the things that makes me ashamed of Britain in World War II is we became firm allies with Stalin, who was at least as bad as Hitler. I'm not
And-
saying Hitler was better, but they were at least equally bad.
And was responsible in large measure for World War II. I mean, people look at what Hitler did or but I mean, Stalin, when you look at the things that he did, that were sort of a prelude to, I mean, one of the reasons Poland couldn't resist Nazi Germany was because the USSR cannibalized it, half of the country.
Yeah, but they had 17 days.
They invaded just after the Germans, so that's not
They
true.
said they invaded 17 days after.
Yeah. But no. Oh, and look, being a purely selfish Brit, Britain shouldn't have given Poland any sort of guarantee. And had Britain not done that, France would not have done either. And I am fairly convinced these days that had that been the case, Hitler would only have gone east. I don't think he had any real interest in taking over Western Europe.
Wasn't that Buchanan's thesis? His
Yes.
revisionist history of World War II?
It is part of his thesis, yes, but I didn't get it just from him. I got it from I'm bloody 57, and I've been reading history for 40 odd years. So he's not the only one who has said that. I am pretty convinced that had Britain not given Poland an idiot red war button, which was crazy because Britain couldn't help Poland, whatever, anyway. France certainly wouldn't have done it if Britain didn't. And then I think you would have possibly got the last SS bloke fighting the last NKVD guy somewhere up around Archangel, which would have suited me perfectly fine, frankly. Wouldn't have been good for the Russian people. Probably wouldn't have been eventually good for the German people. It would have been good for the Brits.
I don't think World War II, as it turned out, was good for Russians and other people living in the Soviet Union, despite the geopolitical victory of the regime. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Central Asia, and the number of young men that died fighting in that war was quite huge. So it created a whole kinds of problems demographically for many decades after the war. But Kyrgyzstan, when you're talking a nation of less than 1 million people, and something like 80,000 young men between the ages of 20 and 40 died in the Second World War. So, and why would a country in Central Asia be fighting against Germany? You have to think.
Yeah, true. Can I just answer someone in your chat, please, Otto?
Sure.
Google's most wanted frog says, anybody else notice this Brit Bong sounds like Nigel Farage? Well, this particular Brit Bong, after leaving the British Army in 1985, moved to South Africa, joined the South African Defence Force, fought in Southwest Africa, lived there until 2000, and now lives in Australia. So I'm not really very much like Nigel Farage, mate.
Okay.
Isn't Nigel Farage married to I want to say like a German, but that might be wrong. I know he's married to some woman who's not from the UK originally.
It could be anybody in London.
Well, that was the thing about the Queen's Jubilee. They mentioned that the fact that it was probably the least diverse celebration. And of the photos. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there were some colonials and new people who just came over the channel. Maybe scouting out for the next Fruck of Peace.
Oh. I was there for, was it in 2001 to 2004?
Was that the last Jubilee, or?
I think so. I remember we drank a lot of beer at the pub over there by King Cross or something. The Queen's Arms, I think it's called.
I wonder why they call it the Jubilee, though, if it's every 10 years. Shouldn't it be every 40?
It was, well, 2000. The one I was there would have been like 15, no, more than 15 years ago. I was there 2001 to 2004.
Yeah, the British royal family is kind of interesting because I think the Markle, Prince Harry thing has generated more. That's what really gets me. It's someone who parlayed being a C-list actress into being the wife of a prince somehow thinks that has cachet, and she's going to become a Hollywood mogul based on that being like a 30 something year old, almost 40-year-old divorcee turned wife of a prince.
Are you talking about the second-rate actress who married the bastard of?
Well, she's not even second-rate. She's like she was on Suits.
Yeah, she's a second-rate actress who's been around the block at least a couple of times, and the so-called prince who she married is the bastard son of his mother. Everyone knows he's the son of a British Army officer, not Prince Charles. He even looks exactly like him.
I didn't even know about this conspiracy theory. Or
this is not a conspiracy theory. This is the truth. He is the son of a British Army officer, and Princess Diana was little better than a whore.
Wow.
But there we go.
I've heard the Dodi Fayed.
Yeah.
I know she had a relationship with him, but I never heard of
an Egyptian shopkeeper. Yeah. Okay.
It's very
big shop though, big ass shop.
Big ass shop is still a shop.
Well, I ain't got nothing, but so even a little ass shop would be impressive to me.
Otto, I don't have anything either, but I'm also not Egyptian.
Something I didn't know until the Markle thing became publicized was that the British royal family actually can market their name or their image. There's products that are licensed from.
I have no idea, man. Gerard, I swore.
Come and get the Queen Elizabeth's face cream.
Yeah, basically. That's. I didn't even know.
Look, guys. To be fair, I swore a personal oath of allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II as a very young man at 18 when I joined the British Army, and in that respect, I still totally respect her, and long may she reign. But I am no fan of Charles.
Yeah, I mean, for a constitutional monarch.
Although I think William isn't too bad.
Yeah. I mean, he seems to be the most respectable among the potential heirs.
Yeah,
I guess
William and Kate seem okay, and their kids. They seem pretty normal. But I have no room whatsoever for the other twat and his second-rate American actress wife at all.
I have not been following the dynastic politics of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, even when I lived there. It seemed to me that after Queen Elizabeth II, once you got into Prince Charles, his generation and afterwards kind of took the the royal family off the rails.
Yep.
Well,
Totally.
was he the first modern prince or prince to divorce his wife, or was that?
No. Because Edward.
No, she died.
I know
Well,
that there was one who had an affair and kind of absconded and went to France. I think, but I
That was Edward the Seventh.
yeah.
That was Edward the Seventh. The Queen's father, George VI, who was a good and brave Royal Navy officer who fought at the Battle of Jutland in World War One. He took over because his brother abdicated to marry an American divorcee.
Yeah, and that the way I've heard from what little I know about that also kind of turned into a bit of a disaster, didn't it? Like their future. Like, I mean,
Listen,
I don't know.
I didn't like the American divorcee he married, and I didn't think she was very pretty. But I mean, I wasn't him. But the Queen's father, George VI, was a good bloke. He was a very modest naval officer who, like I said, saw action at the Battle of Jutland in World War One, and fought alongside everybody else. And he was a good man.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
What are you doing, Jeff? Good thought we have entertainment here. What's this? Some sort of weird magic trick you did?
It's to be honest, it's almost 2 a.m. I'm just
Yeah,
standing.
because you're in
trying to
Staten
hold-
Island.
Yeah, I'm obviously not in optimum condition for an hours-long conversation. So I think I'll just bid you adieu. But
right.
thanks for inviting me, Otto, and
All right, no problem.
thanks, Iron Duke. I will leave you.
Go well, Gerard.
Thank you. Night.
Spokojnie noc.
That was funny.
Just hit leave studio. Oh, there we go. So now I have bigger screen.
Yeah, I always think, Otto, that any more than 4 guests on a stream, you're struggling a bit.
Well, if I have four people watching total, I'm happy.
Oh, no, you got more than that, man.
I got 16 right now. It's pretty high.
You got more than that. I would have you on a stream on my channel, but I got to think of a subject that we could talk about.
It's 16, it says right now, I think. 17.
I'd like to have you on a stream on my channel, but I have to think about something we could talk about that would be relevant.
We could talk about the Asante Wars.
Oh my God! What, in West Africa?
Yes, in the Gold Coast.
Yeah, I know the Ashanti Wars. That was the big one in the 1870s was Wolseley.
Oh, the Kumasi with the golden stool is located for the Asante people.
Yeah, and their home village or town that was
Kumasi.
full of the skulls of their enemies.
I lived in Ghana for almost 6 years.
Yeah, I know you did. Yeah, I know you lived in West Africa. I caught Felicia malaria in bloody Senegal. Would you believe?
I had malaria 4 times.
No, I got Felicia malaria, which is the one that can kill you. And the funny thing was, like, I used to drink a lot of gin and tonic, and I think it was the tonic that helped me because it had a bit of quinine.
Quinine?
Yeah. And I got taken to hospital by an ambulance, and they told my missus he may not last the night, and she went home. She went home. I'm not joking.
Well, now I don't know about the rest of the world, but in Ghana, it's almost impossible for a healthy adult to die of malaria. You just go across the street to the chemist and you get the 3-day cure.
Well, I came unstuck because like I was running tours in Gambia that then went into Senegal, and the bloke who was supposed to run this tour broke his leg about 4 days before the tour, so I had to replace him, and I couldn't. Like your best anti-malaria stuff is an injection or something that you take weeks before you go, and I couldn't do it, so I had to take the second best thing. And that's how I ended up catching like really bad malaria in Senegal.
They had me on doxycycline, which is an antibiotic, and I took it for about a year, and then I got malaria, but I didn't know it. But I had to get a physical for a contract renewal, and they malaria is big, so they just take a blood sample and they put it on a slide and look at it under a microscope, and they can see the thing, because the malaria is just like a huge parasite relative to your bloodstream. And so then they just put me on the 3-day cure. But then I went off the prophylactic, and then I got malaria like 3 more times that year, and then I didn't get it again.
Does it ever come back?
Yeah, well, what happens is you build up resistance. So each time it's not as bad, and then eventually, after like 4 times in a year, like you don't get it anymore. So the native population, they all like get it as children, and that's where almost all the deaths are, is particularly children under 5, because their immune system isn't fully developed. But if you can make it after 5, then you pretty much will probably be resistant to it for most of your life. So Ghanaian adults may get malaria 2 or 3 times as an adult, but generally with foreigners, they put them on the prophylactics so that you don't die when you get it, that you have some time to build up some resistance, and then you get you'll spend it'll be like a year where you get like malaria every 3 months, but the cure is only 3 days, so you only be sick for like a weekend.
Fair enough. Could I ask you, out of where you are now, when you were in like pretty much center of Russian Federation, and when you were in West Africa, where would you prefer to be?
I really liked working in Ghana at the university, but my wife did not like it. So my wife is still in Kyrgyzstan with my daughter, but she would like to come to the U.S. So I've got to figure out how to do that, which will require me getting employment again.
I'm sure you'll sort it out.
Well, I don't know. I applied for Starbucks yesterday. Let's see if I get it.
You're joking, mate.
No, I'm not.
Fucking hell, man. You shouldn't be doing that.
Why? I got experience. I was a barista for years before I became.
Yeah, but that's a total waste of your brain.
Ooh, yeah, but I need to eat, so.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I mean, wow. You ought to be able to do better than that, Otto. I'm sorry.
It's better than teaching 7th graders. At least I won't be in danger of dying of cardiac arrest every day between 2 and 3 p.m.
How old is a 7th grader?
12.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's a bad age. I'll give you that. That is a bad age for kids.
Yeah. American students are particularly bad, and I'm not in an area that has a particularly good reputation for education, and on top of that, we were coming off of the COVID quarantine for 2 years, which really made it bad.
Well, I do hope you can get yourself a university job, mate. I really do.
I doubt it. I think, if I wanted to have been a university professor, many things I should have done that I didn't. I didn't join the Weather Underground. I didn't join the Communist Party. I mean, all these major screw ups here.
Man, I don't know. You should talk to somebody like hang on. I've Men Like Gods, Iron Duke talking big game, tucked safely in his council house. Mate, I own my house, so it's not council house. I am. And I spent 11 years as an infantry soldier. So you can get fucked, excuse me. But there we go. No, honestly, Otto, you should talk to somebody like, I don't know, what's his name? Bloody hell. Let me think. It'll come to me in a minute. You should talk to somebody like Gottfried or somebody and find yourself a job that is suitable for yourself, who is like educated, etc.
There just aren't those jobs anymore. It used to be there were some in, third world countries, but they've dried up too. So, every position for a history lecturer in the U.S. will have at least 200 applicants now. And generally they'll want somebody who can do African American women and gender and all kinds of that type of stuff. So it's not a
damn, man. It's just like it's a waste, If you're not using your brain, it's a waste. It really is.
Well, I didn't choose the job market. It got bad before I probably was on it. So
yeah, absolutely, they are.
But,
I mean, it's good that you managed to get back into the US. So I reckon from that, even using the leftist own rules, you should be able to get your family back there.
yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I just take everything as one day at a time. So I'm not sure exactly what would go, but the academic job market just gets worse and worse as far as working at the university as a professor in history. I haven't seen any year where it's actually gotten better from the previous year.
Yeah, I can believe that. I mean, look, man, my work history was soldier for like 11 years, and then working on boats, including sailboats, for about 4 years, and then I was in sales, which was purely just to make money. I detested it. I was quite good at it, but I detested it.
I can't sell anything, but I can make coffee.
Yeah, man. Well, I hope you get something better than that. That would be shit if you end up doing that. You'd be better off teaching 12-year-olds than doing that, surely.
Well, I don't know what else there is around. I mean, not a lot of openings. So basically, the three things I have on my CV: PhD from School of Oriental and African Studies, 12 years working at universities in former Soviet Union, West Africa, and the Middle East, and publishing of 4 books and a number of journal articles. That all counts for absolutely nothing at best. A lot of times it's a big negative.
Yeah, that's no good, man. That's no good. I look, as I said, I definitely think you should do a stream with Dave the Distributor. And once you get in touch with him, ask him for some advice on jobs and stuff. I mean, Dave's an engineer, but he's certainly got a few post-grad degrees. So he could be somebody who would be worth talking to, I think.
We'll see. We'll see. Uh, I've had, I've got two jobs I'm waiting to hear from. One is Starbucks and one is Healthy Choices, but neither of them
Yeah.
pay very much.
Yeah. No, neither of which I would even bloody do, mate, to be honest. But there you go. But I'm semi-retired. I'm older than you, so you know. I would just say, yeah, look for some better stuff, mate. Also, monetize your channel, Otto. You can. You've got once you get 1,000 subscribers, you can monetize your channel, and you should, so people can send you super chats and this kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I'll see about that. I think it was monetized at one time, and then they took away the monetization because it had been inactive for 6 months.
Yeah, it could be because you went away. I remember that.
I didn't go away. I was dying every day working with 12-year-olds. It was the intellectual equivalent of mining coal in Karaganda.
Yeah, but you were moving as well. I remember. But yeah, no, you should absolutely monetize your channel. So, and also set yourself up something like a GoFundMe or whatever the bloody hell it is. Set yourself up one of those things as well, so that people who like your channel can give you, I don't know, $5 a month or whatever it might be.
I have a Patreon.
Oh, cool. But it's not anywhere that you can see it on your stream, mate.
Well, I didn't put it on, but
yeah, you should. And
it's on most of the other. If I plan for these things where I do the pre-recorded, is usually on there at the bottom.
Yeah, well, you need to do that stuff, man. You do, honestly. And if you end up working at Starbucks, I will spew. Because
Starbucks pays well.
Yeah, right. Okay. I wouldn't work at Starbucks, although I don't know about you, mate. I wouldn't work.
Well, I'm okay doing any work at this point as long as it pays.
Oh, listen, I've worked on sheep farms, and I've worked on all sorts of boats, but I wouldn't work for fucking Starbucks. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't.
Well, it has some advantages.
All right, fair enough. Anyway, I'm probably going to outstay my welcome if I stay on.
All right, no problem. Thanks for coming on.
Go well, man. And I really do. I hope you get your family back with you and all the rest of it. So go well on it.
All right. First thing I have to do is get another job, because the U.S. Immigration laws require that I make at least $18,000 a year to sponsor over a spouse.
Unless you are from Somalia, no doubt.
There are people that break the rules and bend the rules, but all kinds of ways. But the standard is that 18,000, which is not a whole lot.
No, it ain't. All right, nice to talk to you again, Otto. Go on.
I'll see you later. Thank you. All right, just me. I don't think I can have a second wife. All right, so been going for how long here? Probably long enough. I got to tomorrow try and figure out how to get my blood pressure medicine renewed. All right, so I will end this now, and I'll see everybody later. I'm not sure when I'll do another program. All right, so I'll catch you all later. Buenas noches.